You know, a lot of people, when they run into conflict in my business, they want to run away, put their head in the sand, thinking that it would fix themselves. And we have a lot of fear in terms of confronting things,
Right.
dealing with things, talking about things that either we don't agree with or people that don't agree with us. You know, how do you move people forward in that realm? And how are you helping through conflict resolution to get people to solving some of their communication, all kind of issues? Hey guys, welcome to another edition of A Great Merrick Damon Show. Listen, I want to thank you guys for all following us, showing your love. As you can see, our audience is growing. So is our studio. So thank you guys. Keep following, keep subscribing, and thank you for joining us. So today I have a wonderful guest. I have a dude named Adrian Carter. What's up, Adrian?
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, so Adrian is this wonderful guy. He is a conflict mediation, a conflict resolution coach. He's also an author, and I'm excited to talk to him today because, as you guys know, and I go through a lot of conflicts when it comes to dealing with real estate. So I'm going to try and tie these in for you today so you get a really good understanding of how we work. And I'm going to ask Adrian some interesting questions so he can share your knowledge on with you guys out there in the audience. So Adrian, would you just introduce yourself to my audience? Tell them a little bit about who you are, maybe your background.
Well, first, thanks for having me. My name is Adrian Carter. I'm a conflict resolution practitioner, which includes mediation, facilitation. I'm also an executive coach, which means I work with higher level administrators, CEOs, C-suite folks in conducting training on leadership development as well. I'm also an author. Last year, I published my leadership development book. And the name of that book is Emerging as the Right Person in the Right Place at the Right Time. And it talks about the Ellison model and some really revolutionary approaches to leadership, but in a very simplified way.
Sure.
But it's what I also use for my training. And in other worlds and spaces, I'm also an educator.
Okay, great.
And so I teach, I train, and I'm also a doctoral student at Nova Southeastern University. So I'm studying conflict analysis and
Shout out
resolution.
to Nova, shout out to South Florida. So listen, I'm going to get started with leadership, okay? And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So, you know, as you know that we do this show, I like to consider this show an education piece. So we can help people become better leaders,
Right.
okay? If you're going to be in real estate or any industry really, right? You're going to have some leadership skills in order to be successful and to compete at the top. What do you tell people, and what I can tell my audience of real estate related folks, what are some of the traits in leadership that if they don't have them, they need to look at them, try and develop them, or even think about them? What are some of the first things you share?
The first thing I share is people have to understand that they are leaders. Everyone has the capacity, the ability to lead.
Sure.
Leadership is not a gender specific title. Sure. And people, that's a big focus for me, because what we do is in our world, we decide to compartmentalize leadership. Right. And then when people go into a relationship sphere, then they try to say, well, only the man can lead, or only this entity can lead, and that's very flawed. Leadership is leadership.
Right.
You can't move from one space and be a leader, and in another space not be a leader. It doesn't work like that.
Well, I'm going to jump on that because that really kind of comes home to me. I thought about leadership when I started my company, Merrick Damon, 5-6 years ago, about leadership. And what I knew that was important to me about being a leader is that leaders go first. And I had to accept the fact that if I'm going to do it, or I'm going to build it, or I'm going to create it, that I had to do it first.
Right.
And a lot of that was I have to accept it, and I have to make the moves to make it happen.
Right.
You know,
accept the fact that you're a leader.
Right. And there are many challenges with leadership. And it's not gender specific, it's not race, it's in there. So it's about taking on the role, accepting it, and excelling at it. I wrote a book called Keep It Moving. Part of Keep It Moving, the Keep It Moving movement is that whenever leaders face challenges, which we face in life and we face in business, and we kind of get set back. Right. And in order to be a leader, what I had to find out is that when I get a challenge, I have to keep it moving.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I say that with so much passion because my life is based on keeping it moving.
Right.
The things that I do is based on keeping it moving. So one of the things is you accept it, and for me in my life, I have to keep it moving,
Right.
no matter what happens. Do you talk to your clients or people about that part? That leadership isn't just a path without roadblocks.
Well,
it comes with a lot of it.
Right. In fact, it's at the point that you're confronted with a problem that you demonstrate leadership. Wow. It is the very act of leadership that resolves a problem.
Sure.
Right. So part of my training, one of the things I do is I created what is called the Cole Solution Bridge, and that's named after one of my mentors from college, David Cole, who was my student government advisor at Florida International University. The solution bridge is very simple. On your left hand is a problem, and on your right hand is a solution. And what's left in the middle? You are.
Right.
The person is left in the middle. And that simple activity is to show people that you are the difference in moving a problem to a solution. Wow. Or a conflict to a resolution.
Right.
It's the very act of leadership that resolves it. You know, a lot of times people look at leadership and they think about it in terms of skills.
Right.
And the skills component of it is very important. Effective communication, which I'll talk about again in a moment, but time management, your ability to problem solve in general, right?
Sure.
To take initiative. Those are all leadership qualities that are very important. But what people also have to do is that I relay as a message is you also have to begin to embody leadership. Okay. The embodiment of it is it becomes your way of life.
Sure.
Right. It's not that at this particular time I am going to put my cape on. It's like if we look at Clark Kent and Superman, the fact of the matter is Clark Kent was a disguise for Superman.
Yeah.
At all times, Superman was always Superman.
Sure.
You understand? His disguise never stopped him from being Superman.
Sure.
So people have to embody their Superman.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
And that's
Superman.
part of that acceptance piece,
That's
right?
part of the acceptance. You have to know that you're a leader and operate in that space. I think the other component of one of the skills, though, that I find very important for leadership is effective communication.
Sure.
And a lot of times
it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's a challenge. But this is what I also train on. Understand that effective communication is a process.
Sure.
You learn it.
Right.
It's built on relationships.
Sure.
And a lot of times the conflict that a person is experiencing is not in the problem itself, but in the way that the problem is discussed.
Wow, I get it, bro.
You get it?
My God, man, this is such a great show. I'm glad you guys are tuning into this one. This is really deep. I love that. And we got to dig deep into that one because that's so important. You know, for all you guys out there listening that love real estate and always want to jump in, you know, I own a real estate school. So I teach real estate to people. I've trained over 500, 1,000 agents over my time here teaching real estate. And I inevitably, I get students that come in and they all have watched television, watched these shows on Instagram, and they all think that they can walk into real estate, just immediately become $1 million listing, $1 million heir, without the traits of leadership. Right. And it's really hard for me sometimes to sink in to them that, you know, the people that are successful in this business, that are doing it excellently and well, have leadership skills in them.
Right.
And they didn't just come to insta success. In a society today, and I want you to talk about this because this is important to me, where people are so accepting of, and they see it on social media, what instant success is, what instant life and what instant being a millionaire and stuff is, when they don't have the skills to get them there, or more importantly, to keep them there, is really important. And I must think that you must run into this all the time, because I see it all the time where people come in and they want instant success.
Right.
They don't want to do the work. They don't have the time. They don't want to put the energy in to do leadership, because being a leader does require work.
It does. You know, I started my company a couple years ago, and as doing conflict resolution training, I also started my doctoral program. And I was going through the process, and I'm looking at my personal resume and the things that I know I bring to the table.
Right.
And it would seem as if getting to that next level
Sure.
is just taking its time and taking its time. And it's like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not being met with bigger opportunities,
Yes.
right? And training. And it finally dawned on me one day. It's like, I have my higher self and my lower self. So my lower self has all these questions. It's the way I compartmentalize. But my higher self sat my lower self down one day and communicated to me. Number one, things take time.
Wow.
Things take time.
It's hard to get that message.
It's hard to get that message. And my barometer for success became the fact that I was making progress. It didn't matter how slow it was. In fact, what I began to do is remove the vocabulary slow from my the word slow from my vocabulary. Sure. I began to remove the word slow from my vocabulary, so I won't say slow success is better than or slow progress is better than no progress at all. No, I just accepted progress for what it was. Because the fact is, I moved, I inched along here. Maybe today I got 2 inches. Maybe I was able to jump a foot. Maybe I jumped, 3 feet. Or maybe I'm back to it. But the fact that I'm moving, right, became that much more important to me than how fast I was moving.
Right. And maybe I have to talk to people about that specific point, because people get in my business, specifically in real estate, and they want the instant success.
Right.
They want to be a millionaire right away. They've seen all the big, real estate
the
guys.
Infomercial, the marketing.
They've seen all that piece, but not understanding what's behind that.
Right. And I'm just going to say
just a message, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that what happens is people they don't see the process. Right. And and social media handicaps people in that way. They don't see the process, and they immediately think that, well, I can do that.
Sure.
And it's a false narrative. It's unfortunate, but a lot of that runs through the gamut of our society. Yes. In almost every industry, there is this appearance of success that's presented through social media. Sure. And through media altogether, when in fact it's not. I mean, it's hard, grinding work, and I think the other component of leadership that sticks out that relates to what we're saying is consistency and continuity.
Right.
Can you wake up every day? Can you continue to build your brand? Can you are you going to go to those networking mixers? Are you going to make those phone calls on a daily basis? Are you going to drop your business cards off at different locations? Are you willing to set a goal for yourself and say, well, I'm not going to bed until I talk to at least 30 people today?
Right.
And that's the process that people are not willing to put themselves through, but they'll be quick to take a picture and post it up on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with Merrick Damon, or I want to have a company just like this. Not understanding that, I've been in this business for 20 years. Right? I've been in and out of it. I've had other businesses. I've done all kind of things. But that this was not something that happened instantaneously.
Just happened overnight. Right,
and
absolutely.
most of my education and learning is in my head. It's what I learned. And I learned it probably the tough way, which most people, I think, and a lot of people aren't willing to go. I talk to a lot of people in this industry, and a lot of them say, oh yeah, they watch Instagram. They want to go out there. They want to do 3 videos, and if they don't get success with those 3 videos, then they give up. They haven't realized that, people go back and look at it. It takes time. Right. It takes doing things over and over again to build a track record of success.
One of the beautiful things about, one of the ways that social media does work well is going back to what you just said. If you're consistent with your brand,
sure,
right, and you post your videos, you make your statements, you put yourself out there. The great thing about media as a sustainable format is that people can go back to it.
I agree.
And so 2 years later, when they go back and they're looking, they say, oh my God, this person has been consistent. This person has been posting videos. Oh, their content is really good. I didn't know that. Oh, I remember when that happened. Oh, wow. You know what? Let me contact this person.
Right.
So it pays off. It may pay off 5 years from now.
Right.
But that's why I say the consistency between effective communication, between knowing that you are a leader and embodying that, effective communication and demonstrating consistency in that process, those are the type of things over time that lands us into the success we really
Guys, this is a great show. I hope you guys are taking notes on this one. This is really one that you need to dig deep into. So we talked about leadership. Let's talk about a few other things. Let's talk about conflict.
Okay.
With every leader, there's inevitably conflict.
Right.
We're not trained necessarily to deal with conflict. You know, a lot of people, when they run into conflict in my business, they want to run away, put their head in the sand, thinking that it would fix themselves. And we have a lot of fear in terms of confronting things.
Right.
Dealing with things, talking about things that either we don't agree with or people that don't agree with us. You know, how do you move people forward in that realm, and how are you helping through conflict resolution to get people to solving some of their communication, all kind of issues?
Right. The dynamics of conflict is usually centered around identity, power, and emotions. Those two entities, those three things. If we can get an individual to first define who they are,
right,
in terms of their identity. A lot of times when conflict happens is we think someone is saying something or has done something, it impacts our identity. It makes us question who we are or how others perceive us.
Right.
And that conflict in identity becomes shaky. Next comes into play is the person wonders how much power they have, which is how much control of the situation or the outcome do they have. But if someone has said something, it's impacting who you are, you don't feel that you could really have you have a lot of power in the situation to impact it, then your emotions come into play, and that's when you begin to have some negative thoughts about yourself, about the process, and about people.
Right.
What I do, even in my research for my doctoral dissertation, is I focus largely on the identity of the individual. If I could get the person to realize that who they are is, if I can ground them in that, then I can remove the personal from the situation, and let's begin to look at it for what it is. You know, a lot of times somebody walks into a room, give you a scenario, and it could be your supervisor, a client, whomever, and they snap at you.
Right.
And let's say you drop the ball somewhere, but they really come down hard on you. They have something to say, and so you're in this conflict. What I've learned to say is that, well, that's not a reflection of me.
Wow. No.
That negative attitude, right? That's not, I get that you're upset, but are you having a good day? Are you going on? What's going on with you? You see, my identity is solidified.
Right.
I could acknowledge where I made a mistake, but everything else that's going on with you,
not my problem.
That's not my problem. That doesn't have anything to do with me. So, but what happens now is people would take that and they'll run and they'll be like, well, what are you trying to say about me? And why would the person have said that to me? And how that makes them feel. I've learned to graduate from that.
That's great.
Right, because my identity is solidified. I could deal with the issue for what it is. I try to bring people to that space. And if a person can come to that notion of knowing who they are, which goes back to the leadership and the embodiment.
Right. The understanding of self.
The understanding of self.
Right.
Then you can work with others better. So a lot of times the conflict that people are experiencing is not really a conflict with someone else. It's really a conflict within themselves.
Wow.
And that's why identifying their identity and being solidified in that, what I'm really saying is resolve the conflict for yourself, because conflict is mostly an internal or an intrinsic, an internal process that a person is going through. And it's not with another person.
And I'm always thinking, and I'm so glad you brought this point, man. This is an amazing show, so I can't thank you again for being here. But I'm always saying to my people, or my friends or things like that, what are you doing with the thoughts that are in your head? You understand?
It's a good question.
It's a big question, guys, and I want you to think about that and think about it now. What are you doing with the thoughts that are happening in your head? And identify those thoughts and see where they're coming from, because it really is what you said. It wraps back into what you're saying. This has everything to do with you than the other person. Because what people see, someone walks in the room, they're upset. Well, did I do something? You didn't do anything.
Right.
You're just there.
Right. And I've learned to detach myself from those emotions.
Right.
Because they lead you down.
But people
those
can't
thoughts.
detach those selves until they quite understand
themselves.
Themselves, right? And that's where we have to get people to. How do you understand who you are so that you can pull yourself away from the situation and understand it has nothing to do with you, because you weren't involved.
Absolutely.
And the thoughts that you're thinking, if you're thinking to yourself, I created this problem, he's upset with me about something I did yesterday, or that note I wrote him 20 years ago, has nothing to do with you.
Right. It's a lot of times that is the natural human thinking is
Right.
that something is reflective of us, and it's not. I think another component that helps us resolve conflict, and it's also a leadership skill, is accountability.
Well, makes sense.
Right? If a person is willing to take accountability, hey, I could acknowledge where I went wrong. That goes far. Next, if you understand who you are and you also are willing to be accountable for who you are, which means that when you mess up, you're willing to own it. It also allows you to level the playing field.
Sure.
It allows you to level the playing field where you can say, well, hey, I know I messed up here,
Right.
but all of the other things that you're bringing to the table, that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Okay, but going back to effective communication, but I want to let you know I respect you. I want to let you know that I appreciate, the opportunities that you give me here. I enjoy working with you. I know I messed up in this area. I'm going to fix it. Which is what accountability is, right?
Yep.
But I also want to let you know that, hey, there is still a way to speak to me.
Sure.
There's still an expectation, right? So if people learn, that's why that self, what are you doing with those thoughts?
Right.
If you're able to compartmentalize them and not allow it to terrorize you,
Sure.
and just be accountable and deal with something for what it is, then I think we do a much better job at either managing the conflict and ultimately resolving
Yeah,
the
because
conflict.
even when people accuse us of things that we haven't done, when you know self and you know that you can stand so much straight and say, no, that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
I was not involved in that.
Right.
Why are you bringing me into it? It's not me.
Right.
And you can hold them accountable
Right.
for their thoughts and what they say and what they do. I can't lead this discussion of talking about leadership and conflict resolution without dealing with forgiveness. And I have to talk to you about forgiveness because it's such a big part of just who we are, how we think. I'm very lucky, guys. I don't know if I tell you guys this, that I have a very terrible memory, so I can forget things very easily, which is great for me because it's hard to hold grudges. Hey,
Right.
what you do to me? I can't remember. I don't know what it was. I see you and I can say hello. Hey, what's up? That's not always the case, but it does happen. It's tough to move on when you can't forgive people.
Absolutely. Forgiveness is a component of conflict resolution. We talk about that in the practice of the conflict resolution field. Peace building, conflict resolution, peacemaking,
Sure.
conflict management,
Sure.
the transcending conflict. What happens with forgiveness, though, and I'm writing another book that
What's you thought about? Is it about forgiveness?
it's about relationships.
Okay.
And it talks about forgiveness in that book. And I broke down the term for forgiveness. Give for. What are you giving for? Right? When you flip those words around.
Sure.
And it's given for more opportunities. It's given for growth. It's given for a new space to be built.
Wow.
A new relationship to be recognized and to be built. I think what people mistake about forgiveness is that somehow it means that you get to be the dummy.
Yeah.
Right? You got to play like this never happened.
Right.
People say, oh, the Bible says forgive and forget. And people, I might forgive you, but I might not forget. And people, I think they kind of struggle with those understandings and with those concepts a lot of time. For me, it's simple. You can forgive someone. You can pull the lessons that you needed to learn from it, but you could also give room for growth within the relationship, for a new opportunity and you're not the dummy for it. You are. And I don't like to even use the term the bigger person because I think sometimes we play that out.
Right.
That people want you to be the bigger person all the time while you get taken advantage of.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that either.
Right.
But if you have an understanding of who you are, so look how we can connect all of these things. If you have an understanding of who you are and you are accountable to yourself, which means you have boundaries.
Right.
And you are a leader and you want to embody that, you should be able to forgive and be able to recreate a new relationship within that space. You could change the space. Oh, there's freedom in forgiveness. If somebody's done something to you, it doesn't mean that you have to work with them again.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you have to hold on to the grudge and hate
Carry
them.
it
And every
for the
time
rest of
you
your
see
life.
that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just going to eat you up on the inside. And the irony a lot of times is The people you're not forgiving, they living their best life.
And they forgot about it.
Forgot about it. It's not that important to them. You thought it was a 10. They thought it was a 1.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that big of a deal. And you mad for nothing.
I know.
Putting all that energy into something they're not even.
They moved on with their lives.
Right.
They forget it. You know, this is such a great show, man. I'm so excited that we're able to bring this one to you and to talk about these amazing topics. We've talked about today, let me just review this. We talked about leadership. We talked about conflict resolution. We talked about forgiveness. And I got to ask you, before we close out this show, what else do you think is a crucial element, something that we haven't discussed right now, so that you guys can use it? You can use this in real estate. You can use it anywhere in your life that you think that we have missed out or we haven't had a chance to discuss.
Well, I'll say this. What I think really works well for your audience is my book, the title of my book,
Let's talk about that.
I think alone is very impactful. Emerging as the right person in the right place at the right time is the name of the book. And it's a common saying, oh man,
Yep.
You happen to be you were in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
I love that saying because it gives everybody an opportunity to be successful.
Yes.
And if you're a real estate agent, if you're a broker, if you're a lender, do you know how to be the right person in the right place at the right time? In other words, are you branding yourself?
Sure.
Are you marketing yourself? Are you being ethical?
Right.
Right? Are you practicing things that you preach? Have you embodied your leadership so that you can, when you approach a client or a potential client, you are saying to them, hey, I can be the right person for you in the right place at the right time. Wow. I could get you in the right home in the right location. You know, when you pull those things together, it becomes, you can multiply it across many different disciplines and industries. And I think that's one of the things that, again, connects right back to everything that we're saying is, how do you put in the time and the effort to know who you are, to to be accountable to yourself, to go through the forgiveness process, because you're going to have to shed some of that weight.
You got to shed some of it.
And be aware enough in your communication to both yourself and others that you become the right person in the right place at the right time.
Because I think most people think that there's a certain date or a certain time where it's going to be right for them. And for most people, it's now.
Right,
exactly. I'm now. I need to be as big as somebody else. I need to do. Well, if you haven't done the work, you haven't taken the time, you haven't learned the lessons, you haven't gone through some of the difficulties, some of the successes, some of the failures, then it's not awful that you're not there yet.
Right.
You know, it takes time. Leadership, developing, growing. And some of that stuff you can't just watch on YouTube, guys.
Oh, you got to go through it.
You got to go through it.
Yeah.
Some of it
you got to go through it and grow through it.
Yeah. You just can't get it from watching a video. Not all things. Right. Think about it like the heart. Sometimes it's got to ache in order for you not to make some of those same mistakes again. It really does. So anyway, this has been an amazing show. Adrian, I can't thank you enough. Let's talk about your book again. It's called
Emerging as the right person in the right place at the right time.
And where can they get it? Amazon,
Barnes & Noble. And you could also check it out on my website. That's www.adriancarter.solutions.
AdrianCarter.solutions. Guys, thank you. This has been an amazing show. We have talked about some really good information. So again, to my audience, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for looking at us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on our soon to come, you probably seeing this already, our podcast. So thank you guys, and we'll have a new show coming up real soon.